Welcome back to Harbour Unboxed, Part 1, first Q&A of 2020. So exciting stuff. Hopefully there's a lot of good questions for Tim and I to answer. And just quickly, because I had to explain this on our live stream, I didn't just murder somebody. They still look a bit red. I've washed them about 30 times, so they're not as bad. Before Tim came over, I was finishing off a project I was working on, and I had C1000 red, so opaque.
That's your excuse, at least.
That's my excuse for murder. So anyway, I got that on my hands. They looked really bad. In the live stream, I was watching the stream. They look glowing red. So anyway, that's why my hands are a bit off colour. That's why. Now we've explained that, we can get on with the Q&A and I won't get 1,000 questions. Why are Steve's hands red? So let's just get into it. Okay, first question. Why did you guys choose not to go to CES this year? Was it because of the backlog of work, a lack of compelling products at the show, or some other reason? Also, do you foresee yourselves covering any other events from afar this year? Loved your CES content, by the way, so good job, Tim. Like, says that. Tim did an awesome job. I agree. I didn't do anything. Tim did it all.
Well, I didn't even do that much. I mean, it's just rounding up the news. I've always found when these shows happen, there's so much news and so many people scrambling to cover everything. There's a lot of just junk that I'm not interested in. It. I hope rounding up everything into a couple of videos and going to some of the more interesting things in depth was the better way to do it. And that's fairly easy to cover without being at the show. Obviously, we didn't get hands-on on any of the products or anything, but with these things, there's so many announcements. There's not a lot of products that are available. I feel like
Computex is more of a hands-on show personally. CES is more, for the stuff we cover anyway, more news-related. So I feel like you can do a better job, or at least a much easier job. Yeah,
it's pretty easy to go from the, watching the live stream of an event to just straight into the analysis and making the video. So that's been pretty easy. I think you asked, do you foresee us covering any other events from afar this year? I mean, we'll attend Computex in person, like we've been doing the past few years. But from afar, basically everything else. So like your Gamescoms, if Nvidia does their usual, special events for their announcements, pretty unlikely we'll be attending any of those. So expect something similar.
Yeah, I think the main issue with CES is the fact that we're not US based. So
it's a long flight.
It's a 17-hour flight for us to head over there. And Tim and I don't have one 17-hour day that we can burn, let alone two. So for us to cover CES, it would put us out of action for about 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah, that's probably, especially with the time zone change. Like attending Computex for us is roughly the same time zone, so we don't have to deal with jet lag. Going to the US is out of it.
After doing a 17-hour flight there, covering the show, which is complete madness, then 17 hours back, and then the commute. It's a 17-hour flight, but getting to the airport, sitting around at the airport, and then doing that at both ends, it's a lot longer than 17 hours. And you don't just come home from that, jump into benchmarking and filming and all that. So it takes a few days to recover. So CES just doesn't make sense for us, really.
Not good for us.
And you have tons of other guys going anyway. So
Oh, I knew this question would get asked in this Q&A. So top 5 favourite products of CES 2020.
Favourite announcements or favourite products?
Probably going to have to be favourite announcements. I mean,
for me, I'll go first. I've only really got, I've got one for personal reasons, really selfish reasons, just personal reasons. For me, I think it was probably the MSI X570 Tomahawk, and a lot of people will probably be like, what? A motherboard? But just because the amount of work we put in to, I suppose, expose how bad MSI's X570 range was, and then MSI taking that criticism on board. They've already released the Unify and now the Tomahawk. For me, that's pretty awesome to see that they've actually evaluated and gone back, and it's not an easy, cheap thing for them to pump out a new motherboard and do all the marketing for that and all the tooling. So the fact that they're releasing the Tomahawk, I think is cool. Not going to take all the credit for that, but I am a little bit proud to see that they've and impressed by MSI, they've gone back and created that product. So I'm very keen to test that in a few weeks' time. I think that'll be cool.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got to find 4 more things. I think out of the AMD announcements, the thing that I think was good, and certainly I wouldn't say it's a favorite product because we haven't tested it yet, and I think this applies to pretty much all of these things, but definitely their mobile APUs, the 15-watt ones, I think are going to be very interesting to see how they can take 8 cores and 16 threads of Zen 2 and bring that down into that power envelope. And
I think it's a cool product. I don't care about laptops personally.
Yeah, it's a cool product. Intel is still very competitive in that space. So to see how AMD can do with their next gen stuff will be interesting. The Asus 360 hertz monitor is interesting, not because I think it'll be something that a lot of people will buy, because it's kind of a niche thing. It'll be for your esports type people, but whenever you see like a new flagship technology that sort of pushes the boundaries further, that's always cool to see, I think.
I think it's sort of like a 3990X sort of thing for me. Like, it'll be interesting to test.
Yeah, that's right. I can't imagine that many people will buy it, and I think it'll be very expensive as well. But
sure,
yeah, that was probably one of the coolest monitors that they had there, and that's 3 products. So maybe this is why we didn't go to CES.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not really into cases.
Yeah, so there's a few of those. There was like a new Corsair air cooler, but that just looked like an air cooler. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of liked how the fans, that was a really good system opposed to those dodgy little steel clips. But yeah, as you say, it's a fan, so it's kind of neat. Yeah,
I mean, there was the 3990X pricing, but that was kind of expected. So
yeah,
I mean, sort of when you break down all these things, I mean, even something like Intel's Tiger Lake platform, which they teased, it was like a tiny little teaser of what they're doing there. It's kind of like, yeah, it was cool to see. So I'm getting a phone call right now. It was cool to see that sort of product. But aside from that, that we're not going to get more information from that for another 6 months. So
yeah.
Does that make the list? I don't think so.
Yeah, interesting, but... All right, next one. In your opinion, was CES underwhelming this year? I'm interested to see what you think about that.
It's not underwhelming because I wasn't really expecting there to be much. So
That's my opinion, yeah.
Sort of when you toss up between your expectations and the reality, it's kind of like, oh, that's pretty much what I expected. It seems that a lot of people expect these big announcements from things, but it's too early in the year for a lot of that stuff.
I think
we got a bunch of releases at the end of last year.
All the rumours that happened late in the previous year, people expect, for some reason, a good percentage of them to be accurate, and that the official information will come at a massive show like CES. But traditionally, it's not really it's only sort of, as you say, become more, I think you said this in the live stream, more about the stuff we're interested in, opposed to like fridges and stuff.
Yeah.
So
it hasn't, up until a few years ago, it wasn't really a PC
no,
thing.
And Nvidia never announces stuff at these kind of shows.
I think they might have last year. There might have been the RTX 2060 last year. That was the only time.
It's not, yeah, it's kind of like a 5600 XT thing though. Like, it's not a new architecture.
No.
What I mean is, traditionally for like actual announcements people care about, Nvidia host their own events. That's because they did that for the RTX stuff, didn't they?
Yes.
The year before. So Nvidia and then AMD use it more for sort of re-announcing things that we know are coming, or it's usually Computex, the big stuff from AMD.
Most of the companies, really.
Yeah, and Intel. So probably, I think, as you said, the best way to answer that question is we weren't really expecting a whole lot. So I think what we got pretty much met expectations.
Yep.
This next question actually leads on quite well to what we were just discussing there. Why did everyone expect AMD to release all their 2020 products at CES when they never do? So that's kind of what I just said. I thought about this quickly. I wonder if it's because we had the CES drama last year where they were expecting Zen 2 product stack to be, I don't know what, something. And it was teased, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did sort of an unveil of 7 nanometer, and they obviously showed the Radeon 7.
Yep.
They had the last gen mobile APUs. I think it was announced maybe the day before their press conference. They certainly had a big press event. It's just that they didn't show the products, and they came 6 months later.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, there's been a lot of rumors and news and stuff circulating on YouTube about Zen 3 in late 2019. So I wonder if people were thinking, maybe AMD had planned to unveil Zen 2, but because of 7 nanometer supply issues or something, they delayed it. Maybe that wouldn't be the case here. So
yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why this happens every year. That's really the best theory I can come up with, is that.
Yeah, I think, the hype train starts to get rolling and people think, oh, when's the next show that could possibly detail all this stuff? Because you look at the calendar and you see, well, CES in January, and then it's basically a gap up until Computex in the end of May, sort of early June. And there's maybe a few things, minor things in between. So I think people try and slot in those rumors to where they think it'll fit in that schedule. And because you get rumors now, that means it must be coming soon, right? But really, companies like AMD and a lot of other companies tend to have, as we just talked about, their own events. Even AMD has done their own separate events outside of Computex or CES to announce major things because they want the spotlight for themselves. Launching something among a whole bunch of TVs and not really too many motherboards, but like laptops and all that sort of thing, it gets a bit lost. And you want to keep your biggest announcements, your brand new architectures for a place where people get the most out of it. So we weren't really expecting it, but unfortunately some people were, and I think they might have been a bit disappointed.
Okay, we got an interesting question here, and because it is quite interesting, we decided to tackle it midway through our Patreon live stream. So Tim and I just did it live, no rehearsal or anything like that. Not that we usually do that for these questions, but we just decided because it is interesting, and a few Patreon members have asked about our relationship with MSI in the past, especially with these trips that we would just discuss it there.
And we normally talk a lot about, in those live streams, about our relationships with companies, so it's a good time for that.
We aim to be transparent and honest and explain how this stuff works. So basically, I'm just going to cut away to that, so it'll be lower quality because it was the live stream, but you can see our live answer there. We have a question here that was the most upvoted question, and it's something we've talked about with you guys quite a bit on the live streams, like our relationship with companies such as MSI who pay for us to go to Computex. There's been concerns in the past raised by some of you guys that, maybe we won't go as hard on MSI as we should in certain reviews because they've thrown money at us to go to events. I think those concerns, I don't think you guys have those concerns anymore because they were raised a year or two ago, and since then we've destroyed numerous MSI products that deserved to be destroyed, and we've praised other ones that were good. So anyway, the question is, the most upvoted question on the YouTube community tab is, after your unbiased review of the MSI X570 motherboard series, did MSI cancel your sponsorship for CES this year, as they are the ones to sponsor your trip every year? Correct me if I am wrong. And so, as I said, that's the most upvoted question on the community tab, 139 upvotes. So basically we don't. So just to clear up the CES angle of this question, we don't actually go to CES. We've never actually been. I've never been ever in the almost 20 years I've been doing this job.
Yeah, we get a few requests from companies, offering various sponsorships.
Actually, did MSI make an offer? I think
they might have.
Yeah, I think MSI did offer to sponsor us to go over, but we don't go.
That's basically it. We just don't go.
We don't go. So reasons: it's a bad time of year for us. It's a 17-hour flight in one direction, so it's a horrendous flight, and
the show is.
It's not.
There's been over the maybe past 2 or 3 years, there's been more PC related stuff than there has been when it used to be like fridges and washing machines and TVs, but it's not a major release time for most companies. So generally, we've only seen AMD release products in there. Certainly this year, Nvidia had like a driver, and Intel had. We'll tell you a little bit about our products that we'll talk about in the second half of the year. So it's never been a major release time for the stuff we're interested in.
That's right.
Certainly there's a few monitors there, but a lot of the stuff that we're more interested in is going to be at Computex. More likely that each of the major companies will have something there. But also all the partners tend to refresh a lot of their products at that time as opposed to more CES time.
Computex is definitely more convenient show, as in distance and time of year, being that it's more mid-year, and it's obviously a major show for announcements from AMD, sometimes Intel. Not really Nvidia, they don't typically announce, they do their own events historically. But basically, to answer it, we don't go to CES. I think MSI did actually offer to sponsor us to go if we wanted to. So MSI haven't sort of got all upset and kicked us to the curb and say we're not going to support you guys anymore or work with you. MSI have been they've taken the criticism well. At least the higher up guys, not so much the marketing team. So I've spoken directly with the motherboard guys. They've asked for feedback and things like that. We've had a few meetings with them, and they took our testing really well and our comments and criticisms, so that was great. I was actually really impressed. They obviously released the Unify to sort of help pad out that mid-range segment to replace like the Pro Carbon that was a bit of a disaster, so that's good. And we've got the X570 Tomahawk coming up, which is pretty exciting. So I've been sort of pushing them to refresh the lower price range to get rid of some of those boards in there. So it sounds like they are doing that. I obviously haven't tested the Tomahawk yet, but I'm excited to do that. But yeah, so far pretty impressed with MSI and how they've handled the whole situation. But of course, if MSI didn't want to sponsor us, and this is why we've said multiple times to you guys that, you know, we don't pander to these companies and give them positive reviews to get sponsorship money. If they don't like it, there's Asus, Gigabyte, ASRock, and then, you know, other companies. Other companies in the industry, whether that be Corsair or Deepcool, other people we've done pre-roll ads with, and there's just so many companies that I'm sure would be willing to work with us. But so far, yeah, hats off to MSI. They seem to take the criticism quite well, and they've told us they're dedicated to making better products. All the feedback's taken on board.
I think the attitude of a lot of companies is like that. You don't often, I mean, sometimes you do see it, but you don't often see, you know, companies shutting you out or blacklisting you for a bad review if your review is accurate.
Yes.
And I think, you know, companies will blacklist reviewers if the reviewer has done a poor job and has been inaccurate and, you know, is portraying their product unfairly badly. But I think for a lot of the people out there, us, you know, Gamers Nexus, all those, you know, reviewers that do a really good and high quality job and do vigorous testing, companies just take the feedback on board. As you say, a lot of them will, you know, ask us follow-up questions to help make their products better in the future, whether that's, you know, they want to get on a call with us or send emails or whatever. So a lot of the time, feedback is generally pretty good. A lot of the time we do have to answer when you make a negative review, they ask for more clarification. But yeah, as far as, you know, sponsorship type stuff or not getting review samples, that tends to be not really an issue.
Yeah, not at all. And especially with the X570 stuff, because we make sure they know, like, if there's a really bad result coming, maybe it's a BIOS problem. Maybe we've done something wrong. We don't want to be putting, you know, misleading information out there. So well in advance before publishing any of my X570 findings, I submitted those findings to each company and wanted to make sure that everything was okay. MSI went away. They replicated my results and said, unfortunately, those results are accurate. They were surprised themselves, it seemed. That was the situation. So they, like I said, they took that on the chin, said, okay, we've got to do better here. We're committed to doing better here. And that's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah.
So hopefully they've done that with the Tomahawk. We'll test it soon. They've told us we will be getting a sample. So hopefully in the next few weeks we can get our hands on it and do the testing.
It. And all we're interested in is making sure that you guys have the best advice and also that companies make good products. Because at the end, if our testing, which might be negative and annoys the company at the beginning, allows them to make a better product in the future, that could lead to them getting better sales and it ends up with you having better choices for products that are good as opposed to only having a few options for any particular lineup. So yeah, it tends to be quite useful stuff, and yeah, companies tend to take it well, I would think.
Okay, next one. Did 5700 XT get performance bump after driver updates? So basically, since it was released or somewhere in the early days, is it faster now? Because I know there was like this 12% or something. Was that right? 12% up figure claimed in the 2020.
I think so. I didn't really cover the performance uplifts because they're always based on some driver from ages ago that they're claiming they've got their performance gains from.
That's right. It's always slightly misleading. I didn't really look into it much. Basically, as you guys know, I often update all my data. And sometimes you don't see those changes because sometimes it doesn't apply to all games or there was just no change at all. So generally what I do is I pick a couple of cards, usually like a low end, a mid range and a high end one, and retest them with the new driver to see if there's any game or driver updates that have heavily impacted performance. And if I find those, I'll retest everything. But I haven't noticed anything really. Certainly nothing that's universal. So yeah, it's not something I've really gone to look at. As I said, we usually update fairly regularly, so I haven't done like a current versus one of the more original drivers. So maybe there are changes there. I'd have to look at like the fine print and see what AMD were comparing the 2020 driver to. But I don't think so, especially for those of you, if you're updating your drivers on a fairly regular basis, yeah, there's probably been little gains here and there, but that's about it. Okay, here's another question that we discussed on the live stream, but we talked about it for probably 20 minutes, so we won't cut to that one. We'll just answer it here. Any thoughts on Big Navi? Is it actually going to be better than RTX 2080 Ti as rumours say?
So we don't really think that the sort of leaked benchmark from the VR benchmark is accurate. There could be all sorts of things going on there to get those numbers, so I wouldn't be believing that rumour. But at the same time, the 2080 Ti is a year and a half old. It was released, October of 2018, so not quite a year and a half now. If AMD, hasn't really had that high-end competing product for a while now, they still don't really compete with like a 2080 type product. Obviously,
which is like 1080 Ti from Pascal.
Yeah, so not even 1080.
Well, that's sort of
1080 Ti.
2070 Super, but go on.
Yeah, so they don't really compete in terms of performance there. If they're having a high-end product, you'd want it to be faster than an RTX 2080 Ti to at least be able to match what Nvidia will do on the next generation. So if it's not faster than a 2080 Ti, it's kind of going to be a bit disappointing.
Yeah, basically Tim's saying, I don't know why everyone's getting super excited going, oh my god, I've got a 2080 Ti killer, when it's been almost a year and a half. It's like, you would hope so, or we're going to be in strife in the GPU market for at least a few more years.
If it's not 2080 Ti level performance, it's not a high-end card. So
it wouldn't even be worth releasing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a much larger GPU design. I mean, if you're making it much larger, what's the point if you're not up in that $700 to $1,000 market? I mean, it's what's going to happen from that product from AMD. So to see these rumors of it being like 15 or 20% faster, I'm like, yeah, that's what I would expect. Maybe even a bit lower than what I would expect. It's going to have to be better. Yep. So, yeah.
This next one's interesting. We haven't discussed this at all. We haven't actually discussed any of these, but this one, I'm not sure. So anyway, this guy says, Steve calls it hardware unboxed. Okay. And Tim calls it the hardware unboxed. What's correct? Have you ever said the hardware unboxed?
So in News Corner, I say, welcome back to the hardware unboxed News Corner. But in every other video, I say, welcome back to hardware unboxed. So I think maybe this person has thought that I'd say something a bit weird there.
Yeah,
I do say the Hardware Unboxed News Corner.
Yeah, so if I said the Hardware Unboxed YouTube channel, it's not called the Hardware Unboxed.
Yeah, that's right.
YouTube channel. Yeah. Okay, so no, it's Hardware Unboxed.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about something on Hardware Unboxed or something... Anyway.
Yeah, you get it. I think you guys get it.
So, I bought a $500 GTX 980 in 2014 and then replaced it with a $500 GTX 1080 in 2017. Now, for the same $500, I can buy a brand new 2070 Super. Should I go for it or wait for a more significant upgrade? Play at 1440p, 144Hz, and I feel like the 1080, so I suppose that's the GTX 1080, becoming more of a 1080p gaming GPU. Okay. Now that the 2080 Super would be a nice... I know that the 2080 Super would be a nicer upgrade, but I just can't see myself spending $700 to $800 on a GPU. I guess I always have been the $500 and not a penny more GPU guy. That's fair enough. I would probably just keep what you've got for now. I think that... personally, I mean, it depends on the quality settings, but I wouldn't really say a GTX 1080 is a 1080p gaming card. I would consider 1080p gaming cards more like your 5500 XT, 1650 Super, sort of those 4GB cards that have, some of them have 8GB options. But anyway, I mean, everyone's standards are different, of course, but I think for 1440p, 144Hz, with a bit of tweaking of settings, you'll have no problems with the GTX 1080. You agree?
I'd say so.
Yeah. I think later this year, $500 will get you a much bigger performance upgrade.
Yeah, I think you're in an awkward situation where you have waited until the 2070 Super line has come. I mean, because that's only a very small upgrade over the 2070. It's kind of like if you had bought at the time the 2070 came out, then you would have gotten a decent sort of upgrade. But now you've waited, you've only got that 10% upgrade. There's new stuff on the horizon that hopefully will bring a bit better performance upgrade, as you've said.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we know exactly what's going to be happening, of course.
Guessing.
So you're kind of in that no man's land between getting the new fast product right when it came out and having that entire time with the new product, or sort of waiting for that new generation where you hopefully see that bigger performance bump. So I think I agree. I think I'd keep the 1080 for at least a little bit longer.
I could personally get away.
It's a pretty good card still.
Yeah, I would make do with that, no dramas at all.
All right, so we've got a long question here about G-Sync. Hopefully I can summarize this a little bit. So it says, Nvidia wants to open up adaptive sync support for future native G-Sync displays. How does this make sense? You wouldn't buy a more expensive native G-Sync display only to pair it with an AMD card. If you already had an Nvidia system and plan on upgrading to an AMD card, you'd still be able to use your G-Sync monitor. The thing is, only future releases will get the firmware to work with Freesync. Monitors currently on the market won't. Where is the point in that? So yeah, this is something that appeared in the news lately, that the very newest G-Sync monitors with the actual G-Sync module in it do support FreeSync as well through the module, which is kind of interesting. And I guess the question being, where's the point in that? They basically had no choice. I mean, when you think about the monitor market, and why would you buy a G-Sync monitor that locks you into Nvidia cards over a FreeSync monitor that works on both? Mm-hmm. That's reducing your choice of future GPUs and platforms and is locking you down, which a lot of people don't like. So there's no reason someone would have bought one of those products, especially if it costs more, if it didn't also support the technologies that the cheaper products did. Mm-hmm. So basically, because it's a higher end product, they had no choice but to support the feature. It is still good and important to have, though, because the G-Sync module is a very good monitor scaler. Yeah. So it's not like you're getting just a cheap entry-level scaler from a budget class monitor. It's a very high quality product. It's got some features that FreeSync monitors don't have, like variable overdrive, and those things do make for a better experience. Is it worth the $100 to $200 more? A lot of the time, no. But still, if you are buying a high-end monitor, you want to have high-end features. You want to have all the features of lower-tier monitors. So from that sense, I think it does make sense. It's a bit unfortunate it's not backwards compatible. You can't update your old monitor to have it work. But going forward, I think it's good. Do you think that for the casual enthusiast, a home NAS would be viable? I'm doing documents, streaming, movies, home surveillance, and gaming. Should you have a full HTPC system or use an Nvidia Shield, for example? I guess that's for playing back your movie collection on your TV. Love your content. Keep up the good work. These days, a lot of NASs can probably cover all the things that you want to do there. Mm-hmm. A lot of them can run things like a Plex server if you want to run your movies through that. Obviously you can store your documents, store your home surveillance footage and all that sort of thing. So unless you really needed the performance of an HTPC, like you were going to make a small form factor gaming system and play PC games on your PC, I think that going for the NAS and streaming box is a lot more viable. I've dabbled in both, and I find that having to navigate a PC on a TV is much more difficult than using an Nvidia Shield and much less convenient. So for me, that would make a lot more sense. But if I was gaming and I wanted to do PC gaming, then obviously... They're
also two kind of totally different things. So first of all, a great thing about modern NAS devices, so you got your Synology, QNAP, those kind of brands, it's just dead easy to set up. Yeah, like those things they're really, really well refined now, and they can do so much. But they're kind of cool that you can set it up as a central media server thing for your whole house that can be accessed from multiple different devices. Whereas with a home theater PC, as Tim said, it's probably better if you want to play games on the TV. Yeah, if you need the performance of the system. Yeah, I mean, it can be set up to also kind of be a server for other things in the house, but it's... It depends on your location of your network ports in your house. All that sort of stuff, yeah. It's unlikely you're going to have, like, switches and stuff. So, yeah, kind of two different things, but it sounds like sort of like a cheap 2-bay NAS is maybe more what you're thinking about. Yep. Okay, there's part 1 of this month's Q&A. Done. We'll hit pause there. Sounds good. Yep, that's a good amount of questions. Hopefully we get some decent watch time. Hopefully everyone watched the whole thing. And if you didn't, feel free to go back and let it play again. But yeah, that's part 1. A lot of cool questions there, I thought. I actually enjoyed that. And we'll head on to part 2. We have a video in between this, don't we? Is it I think there might be a news video or something like that. News corner, so you have to come back a day after and then we'll have part 3. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm your host, Steve. I'm your host, Tim. I'll see you again next time.